9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening and welcome to a special edition of the Marty Heiser Show. Tonight, we are going to be looking at the state of Connecticut, one of two states in the Union that is actually losing population. We have an entrenched Democratic power structure in Hartford that has done nothing to benefit the average family in Connecticut for a long time. The tipping point for many people was when General Electric hightailed it out for that tax haven of Massachusetts. Tonight you're going to meet some very brave men who have thrown their hat in the ring for the Republican nomination for the run for governor of the state of Connecticut. We are delighted that they're here joining us. We'll be joined by some others as the show proceeds. You have the phone number on the screen, 203-438-2003. If you have a question for these candidates, they're ready, willing, and able to respond, and they're happy to talk to you. We're also joined by Mac Reed, not the editor, what is it, Mac, of the Ridgefield Press?
Oh, senior reporter, maybe?
Senior reporter, but anyone that knows Mac Reed knows he's the most important guy at the Ridgefield Press. And he's joining us along with Al Robinson, ubiquitous, he's everywhere. Everyone knows Al Robinson from the Hat City blog, and Gene Duvale, who is the editor of the Danbury News Times. We are delighted to have them joining us this evening, and we're going to start with the first candidate with a 2-minute open, and then we'll go down and there'll be plenty of time for questions. So, Peter, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much, Marty. My name is Peter Talheim. I'm from Riverside, Connecticut, and I'm running for governor of the state of Connecticut. You can find my platform at saveconnecticut.com. That's fully spelled out. Now, I'm not a professional politician, but I'm running for governor because, like you, I'm concerned with the fiscal condition of the state and our slow economy. But I'm also concerned with political correctness and identity politics. And for that, I have designed a positive platform of unity, gratitude, common humanity, and liberty. And what is gratitude? Gratitude is to be grateful for every day that we have, as none has been promised to us. I'm also very grateful as an immigrant for the privilege to live in this country. And common humanity is that we are all brothers and sisters. And that is the antidote to the poison of identity politics. The identity politicians would like to focus on the 0.4% of DNA that we do not share. Mine is the big tent candidacy that focuses on the 99.6% of DNA that we share in common. And the identity politicians, the 0.4%ers, would like to divide us based on race, class, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation. Mine is one of unity, our common humanity. And keeping in mind the words of Martin Luther King at Oberlin College in 1965, where he said, "We must learn to live as brothers and sisters or perish together as fools." And then there's liberty. Liberty in our personal spheres of freedom of speech, press, assembly, religion, and the right to bear arms. And then in our economic sphere, where the administrative state, the silent killer of jobs and people, is making it very hard to earn a living. Thank you very much.
Next.
Hello everyone, my name is Eric Michael Masciani Sr. I'm from New Haven, Connecticut. I am a United States Navy veteran, Seabee, construction battalion equipment operator. My goal is running for Connecticut governorship to bring all of us together, to help our state to bring jobs back. All of them are leaving, to fix our infrastructure, which goes along with our businesses, and also our children. Our children is our future. Their education, their means of being able to be a well-educated, they are the future. Trades, trade schools, I want to bring them back. I want to boost them. And also, like all the others said so far, we're losing jobs. They're leaving the state our population's declining. We're going to end up like Detroit, desolate. No matter who gets the Republican nomination, we must stand together, come together to make this state a great state, again, which it once was, in manufacturing, and bring a lot of people. I am going to admit I Uber drive. I'm an Uber driver. And a lot of people that I have met told me they know the location of Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut, but they don't know where Connecticut is located, whether it's the West Coast or East Coast of the United States. A lot of them admit it. So we must, by boosting tourism, show them the beautiful state we once have, and we can make it again a great state.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you, Marty, for holding this debate. It's fantastic to be here with all these great candidates. I'm Joe Visconti, and many of you had watched me last election cycle debate Governor Dan Malloy in 2014. I brought you a message that was very important for that year, a message of what was coming for Connecticut, which we are all living through today. I had the foresight to see, by studying our state budget, by studying the details in the budget agreements for labor unions, and even for the issues of tolls, which I brought forward as something that could happen in Connecticut if we brought tax credits to people that commute out of state. If the public and the media and the establishment had thought about this 4 years ago, our transportation fund would not be depleted. I'm a lifelong resident of Connecticut. I was born in 1956 in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm the father of 3 beautiful children who are now grown adults. I was a West Hartford town councilor and a lifelong general contractor. My father and I had a business with my brother over 40 years in commercial construction across Connecticut for great companies like the Aetna, the Travelers, Marriott Hotels, Sheraton Hotels, multi-million-dollar projects that I have managed over the years. I also have a second career in broadcasting media. I have Emmy Awards for my television work, and I'm president of the American Shakespeare Theater, and we're looking to revive the Shakespeare Theater in Stratford, Connecticut. Hopefully this debate brings out a lot of great ideas. I'm in the race to win it. I can win it, and in my closing statement, we will give you the details of how that happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dave?
My name's Dave Walker. I live in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I was originally born in the South. I've lived in 7 states, including as well as the District of Columbia. My wife, Mary, who was my college sweetheart, and I decided to move to Connecticut 8 years ago. In the 8 years since we've lived here, our home value's gone down a third. Our property taxes have gone up 55% due to failed leadership at the state level and the local level. We moved here with the idea that I would end my professional career here and that we would retire here. But neither we nor hundreds of thousands of people in Connecticut will be able to afford to retire here unless there are major changes made at the state and local level. I've got over 40 years of proven leadership experience in the private, public, and not-for-profit sector. My family came here in the 1680s, and yet I'm only the second Walker direct line to graduate from college. And yet in America, I achieved the highest award of my profession for the CPA profession, achieved the highest position in the United States for my profession as Comptroller General of the United States.
Perfect.
I'm a turnaround specialist. I'm a financial restructuring specialist. I will focus on how do we put our finances in order, how do we grow the economy and create jobs, and how do we restore integrity and accountability in government. You can find out more at davewalkerct.com. I believe that I'm uniquely qualified at this point in time to do what needs to be done to create a better future in Connecticut, and I look forward to the questions and to the closing statement. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Go ahead.
I'm Prasad Srinivasan, State Representative from Glastonbury, currently in my 4th term. I'm a physician in private practice over the last 38 years in the Hartford area. And for me, I notice and I see what happens what is happening in Connecticut on the daily basis. I know what it is, how hard it is these days to keep the lights on and the doors open. I know it firsthand. My wife and I have 2 adult children, both graduates of the public school system here in Connecticut, in Glastonbury, the town that I reside in. And my daughter, with a growing family, lives about 3 doors away from us. And it is for that generation and for generations to come that we need to revive Connecticut and make it prosperous again. As a state representative, I know what it takes to move things forward. Serving in the minority party for the last 7 years, and I hope that'll change in 2018, which will be the turnaround year for all of us, both at the House, the Senate, and obviously at the executive level as well. So we will have the opportunity to turn the state, to revive our state, and make it prosperous again. Connecticut can do better, Connecticut should do better, and as your next governor, I will make that happen. The passion for me to run and seek this high office is because I came to this country in 1975 with $7.50 in my pocket, hopes and dreams. And here I am before you, seeking the highest office in the state. What country would give that opportunity? Only in the beautiful United States. And that's an opportunity that everyone should have. That's my goal, that's my dream.
Thank you. Thank you for those opening statements. Our first question is from Danbury News Time, Gene DeBale.
First question is a two-parter. I'd like you to rate on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best, the performance of Donald Trump during his first year of his presidency. The second part of that is to say, do you think that Trump will be a help or a hindrance to the candidacy of the Republican candidate for governor this year?
Excellent question. Peter, we'll start with you. If you can take the mic.
Peter?
Thank you. That is a complicated question. I think if one were to ignore the Twitters, it's a different presidency than with the Twitters. The tweets that come out have been divisive, I would say needlessly hurtful. But I would like to share with you some numbers. 3%, 3%, and 6.9%. 3%, 3% are 2 quarters of economic growth at 3% each quarter with the absence of any past legislation. And that is based solely on the optimism of the economy growing. And I'd like to remind you that the #1 anti-poverty program is a job. Nothing has been invented in the past or in the future that will replace a job. And 6.9%, what is that? 6.9% is the lowest unemployment rate for African Americans since they've been taking records. That is a step forward. A step back has been unnecessarily hurting people in our country. And that is why I have a positive platform of gratitude, common humanity, and liberty to focus on what is good. And the second part of the question?
Well, what was the rating from 1 to 5?
1 to 5, and would it hurt candidates
Right.
on the Republican side in Connecticut?
Well, the tweeting has done, I'm sorry, I prefer, I'm sorry. I will rate the economic performance a 4, a 5, based on his message. And you're wondering how it's going to be for us next fall? Well, that's the problem. The press does not like the president. The press does not like Republicans. And how are we going to answer that? Yes, it is the economy for the state. Yes, it is the fiscal.
Yeah.
But with this 24/7 news cycle, they always have to make up news. And for that, they will attack Republicans and call them all the nasty names that they call the president. And how do we do that? And my responses are gratitude, our common humanity, and liberty.
So, 30-second rebuttal. Anyone have anything to say regarding that? Or, Gene?
Well, I'd like to hear all 5 of them answer the rating question and the question of whether they think he'll be a help or a hindrance in November.
Excellent. Next up. Rating 1 to 5, and is Trump a hindrance or a help in next November's election?
I rate him a 3, and I believe a lot of his policies is to make America better as far as security. Job growth is a major plus that he has. Our economy has grown very much, and I believe 2018 is the year of the Republican.
All right.
As a former volunteer for the Trump campaign, spokesman on disability issues, I rate him as a 5. Give you some stats right now in Connecticut so you understand what's going to happen this fall. Donald Trump lost won 19 towns by 250 votes or less. Another 24, he lost by several thousand. If the Republican Party had stood with Donald Trump, they stood together with him, there was a great chance he could have got even closer to a win. One of the problems was the carried interest rate, which just basically the president went against his own platform running for office. And Lower Fairfield County makes most of their money on paying 15% for dividends. It's called carried interest. And Donald Trump ran against Wall Street, or ran against that. So the 4th District, Greenwich, Westport, Darien, all these towns that were always red, they went against the president. That's not going to happen this cycle. I'm looking forward to the president coming, and if I'm honored to become the candidate that makes it past the primary, they're coming for me. I believe that tweeting that everyone is complaining about is Donald Trump's way of breaking the establishment's back, the media's back, and he's able to go directly to us, to 50 million people, and tell us what he thinks, like it or not, like the abrasiveness or even the kind things he does. That's Donald Trump.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate to give a number to any president of the United States, but I will answer the question in substance. I think if you look at the results of his policies, they've been positive. And so I would give him a high rating with regard to the results of his policies. With regard to his style, it's disturbing to me and to many. And with regard to your question as to whether he'll help or hurt, it depends upon which part of the state. Donald Trump won the 2nd congressional district. In certain parts of the state, he's very popular. He'll be a help. In other parts of the state, he's very controversial, such as Fairfield County. It'll be something you have to deal with. But I think it's important for everybody in Connecticut to understand this. We are running for governor of Connecticut, not president of the United States. We're running for a state office, not a federal office. People need to focus on who is the best candidate to save this state and create a better future. You should not focus on party. You should not focus on personalities. You should focus on who can win and who can get the job done when they do win. And if you do anything other than that, it's inappropriate, it's a distraction, and frankly, all of us may end up paying a price for it.
Thank you. Any response to that? Any feedback?
One more.
All right, we'll go ahead. Go right ahead. Answer the same question. On a scale from 1 to 5, rate President Trump, and you think it'll help or hinder the Republicans in November?
Thank you. We look once again at the presidency, the president of the world, of the entire globe's most powerful person. When I think of the president and the presidency that we have in front of us this year, we've got to look, as we just now heard, separation between the economic policies, the policies that the president just put out, and what has been the style, the mode in which some of which has been delivered. To me, when I look at the tax bill that just came out, at the end of the day, it's a win-win situation for everyone, for the country. And we're going to see that as the year rolls out and we get into our tax returns come 2018 and on. When it comes to, for example, his stand on sanctuary cities, which I am strongly in support of our president and do not believe that we should be having towns, cities, and states calling themselves sanctuary cities. So there are policies that I can agree with wholeheartedly, and then of course there are going to be policies that I'm going to having reservations with. I'm a physician. I take care of the patients. I take care of the indigent. And for me, I'm very concerned that this very, very rapid way that you need to replace with what? That is an important issue. So on that particular issue, am I comfortable with what has happened so far? Of course not. But fortunately, nothing has happened yet drastically, but we will see the change. In terms of impacting us in the 2018 cycle, each and every one of us are going to stand on their own feet, on their own policies, and it's based on that policy that the people, the good people of Connecticut, are going to decide who's going to lead our state.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, okay, we have a caller that calls in. And by the way, the phone number here is 438-2003. We have Michael from Maryland. He has a comment that he'd like the candidates to respond to. Go ahead, Michael. Okay, thank you. Thank you for going. The question was, how can we make Connecticut, which is considered a Democratic state, and Dan Malloy leadership, how are we going to make that transfer to a Republican state? Why don't we start with you, and we'll just go
Yeah, I'd like to start with this. This is some data that's really important for the media to put out, and they just don't seem to be putting it out cycle after cycle. In Connecticut, we have close to 1 million registered voters of all parties, 1 million during a non-presidential cycle that do not vote. We have polled these people in samples since 2013 when I entered my first round for running for governor. And sampling these people, here's what we asked them. Do you know how many people like you don't vote? They say we don't know. We don't vote because they're all the same. You put the same candidates up. We found out that they do not know there's 1 million of them. We are not a blue state. We are a state that does not put up strong conservative candidates that will oppose Democrat platforms. We put up what we call in the political world rhinos. That can't happen this cycle or we will lose.
Dave?
Unlike in 2014, when Daniel Malloy was running for re-election, people knew that we had some challenges, but they didn't realize how serious the challenges were. Since then, we've lost General Electric. There's a real question of whether we're going to lose Aetna, but because of the CVS acquisition, that's been in question. We've lost Alexion. 60% of the people in the state say they're going to move within 5 to 10 years if something doesn't change. We have negative economic growth for the year when the country is growing. And so the bottom line is people know we're in serious trouble. We're not a blue state. I believe that this is a situation where we have an opportunity to go from blue today to red in 2018 if we have the right candidate, if we have the right platform. The bottom line is 2018 is going to be the most important election in the history of this state. We're either going to recognize reality, change course, have a leader who will make tough choices and a legislature will support them, or we're going to continue to decline. You decide.
Doctor?
We think traditionally of Connecticut as a land of steady habits. I disagree with that statement because just look at the composition we have right now. In the House, in the state legislature, we are 72-79. 72-79. 7 more votes, and guess what? We will be the majority in the House as well. Look at the Senate. We are already tied even. It's 18-18. So for us to say that Connecticut is a blue state, I would definitely disagree with that. And 2018, to me, is going to be the year when, if we have the right platform, if we get our message across and are able to connect with our message, a messenger that is able to have a message that connects with the independents, the crossover Democrats, 2018 to me is the year where we will have a straight majority in the Senate, a very close, if not a majority in the House, and we should be getting the governor's seat as well. The state is far from blue. It is turning shades of red, and it will be red in 2018.
Thank you. Peter?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, we are out registered Democrats over Republicans in the state, and we have many more unaffiliated. We must do better. We must also do better in our cities. We must make our cities better. But I think it's the reform candidate who states the facts that we are in a bad way with the administrative state, laws, rules, regulations that dampen our ability to make jobs, to keep jobs. And the unfunded pension liabilities, which depending on whichever week it is, whether it's 39 billion, or other people might say it's 60 billion, compared to an annual budget of 22 billion or 23 billion, this is a serious threat to the future of our state. I have a 5-point program to reform the way our state operates. And one of those is we cannot increase taxes in any fashion. We cannot add more so-called revenues, which is another name for taxes, to our citizenry. That is why they're leaving. Thank you.
This state is not blue or red. We're people of Connecticut. We are citizens of Connecticut. We must first put a leader in Hartford that's going to bring respectability and accountability back to the office. We must cap spending. We must boost the trades for our children, put our children first. We must revisit the promises that Governor Malloy made. And I said I won't bash anyone, but I must put this out there. Governor Malloy, when you became governor, you made a promise that you wouldn't touch anything, like the hourly state workers, pensions, and the state police, and the $12 million for the firefighter school so they could be well trained. You reneged on the deal. We must make it right. But as Connecticut as a whole, we must do what's right for our families, the children, and the attribute of a great leader is one that's going to put the needs of the people above their own.
Thank you. The next question is from Mac Reed from the Ridgefield Press.
Thank you, Marty. Former Republican candidates for governor, a lot of people are talking about cutting taxes or not increasing taxes. I'd like to know from the candidates where you would cut spending in order to finance tax cuts and cover the pension obligations that you were talking about. Where do you cut?
Joe, we'll start with you.
Sure. Look next week for radio ads coming out from my campaign. And the ads will be addressing, it's a 24-part series on video that we have from state workers. We're going to solve our problems with CBAC agreement and with pensions, benefits, and the like by listening to the state workers. We have state workers from most agencies in Connecticut who have come forward. Their identities have been hidden, but the identities will be given to certain people in the media. And what you're going to hear from these state employees is just astounding. We've got it in the can already. And some of the things that they're speaking about is the fact that their bosses, some of them are managers of one person. They spend the day, many of them, especially the Department of Transportation, looking out the window when they have no work. It's going to be probably the most provocative thing that's going to happen to this race. All the candidates here on stage and others that aren't here are going to be benefit from it as Republicans. And I'm excited about that. That will answer your question in a couple of weeks.
Three big things.
Okay.
Number one, we're going to override the CBAC agreement, which we have the power to do as a sovereign entity. That's going to eliminate the anti-layoff provision. We're going to legislatively dictate what pension and health care benefits are going to be. Those benefits are going to be better than a Fortune 100 company, but not as good as they are right now. Pensions are funded 25 cents on the dollar, retiree health care 1 to 2. People have been promised something that we can't afford, we won't keep. And so that's going to have to be done. Secondly, we have to rationalize our welfare system. It's the most generous in the country. It's full of fraud, waste, and abuse. It discourages marriage. It discourages work. We compete with the not-for-profit sector to deliver services. We've got to deal with that. And in addition to that, we have to right-size government. It's grown too big, too many layers, too many players, focus more on time and grade rather than skills, knowledge, and performance. The good news is I've done these things before, and I can do it again. And we need to do it quickly and before it's too late.
I'd like to rebut something here.
Yeah.
Okay, this is important. Dave and I love Dave. We've been fighting about this on Facebook for a couple weeks. One thing about us is we engage with the public. The CBAC agreement is something everyone's been speaking about. Dave is in the position it can be overridden legislatively. I asked him to have a one-on-one with Dan Livingston from the labor agreement side of the CBAC agreement to find out that the litigation, the cost of it, is just in peril. My plan would be easier to use state employees that will reveal to the public and to the press and the media all the weaknesses in CBAC, the fact that they are not having checks and balances within the work. It doesn't matter what we pay someone or what their pensions are. It doesn't matter at all if they're not working. And so we're going to get to the bottom of productivity, merit pay, and the things that are not happening within the CBAC agreement.
Well, look, I'm happy to talk to anybody about it, and obviously I want to get input from the state workers. I've run 3 federal organizations. I've done town hall meetings all around the country, and so I have a history of being able to do that. But the fact is, we're $71 billion in the hole for pensions and retiree health care. $71 billion. I've got a framework that will result in better benefits than a Fortune 100 company, that we can deliver on our promise, that will save us $30 billion. That's with a B. We need to do it. It is the giant thing in the budget that is eating our lunch. It is eating education funding. It is eating municipal funding. It is eating infrastructure investment. It is threatening to shred the social safety net. It is putting pressure for more tax increases. We've already increased taxes to the point where revenues are going down, people's and companies are leaving. We can't do it anymore.
Doctor?
Can I rebut on that?
Yeah, quick, go right ahead. Doctor, you're next up.
After everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, all right. So if you were to go to my site, saveconnecticut.com, you would find the article that I've written as an attorney, but also somebody who took 7th grade civics class on the unconstitutionality of this past summer's CBAC labor agreement. The bottom line is you cannot take 35% of the budget off the table by a mere majority vote of the legislature, signature by the governor, from subsequent legislatures or subsequent voters for 10 years. If 10 years is fine, why not 20? You can't do it. If you look at the plain language of the Constitution, it's not allowed. Again, if you go to www.saveconnecticut.com and look under the unconstitutionality of the CBAC agreement, you will see a very straightforward argument. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Doctor, you're next.
I got to rebut. Let
Okay,
me rebut.
one second. Can you just restate the question, because what is it one more time, and then you can pick
I'm
up.
going to
I was saying
say,
that all of, everybody's talking about holding down taxes, and I'd like to know where they were wanting to cut spending.
Cut spending and where the savings are. Doctor, and then you can have your 25th rebuttal, but that's what we like. We like the red jacket and we like the energy, so that's good. Doctor, you're next.
When you look at where is it that we're going to be able to cut, it's clear. It's the inefficiencies that we have in our state that we need to address. And where do we begin that? The very top. And the very top is going to be zero-based budgeting. So when we begin the next cycle, as your governor, I will make sure that all our agencies, all that they're given is a pad and a pencil maybe. And with that pad and pencil, come up from bottom to top. What is that agency going to do? What is it going to spend on? That's where we start. Look at the ratio between the worker, the manager, and the supervisor. Why is it that the public sector is so different than what happens in the private sector? I am in the private sector. I know what the ratio is and how come it is not there in the state. So the state inefficiencies, and there's a long list, and I hope I get a chance to address the others as well as the evening goes on. That's where the cutting starts from day one.
Thanks, Joe, and then we'll go to Peter.
Sure. This first CBAC agreement, 20 years, there's nothing that says it can't be. But we can speak about litigating, because that's where this is going to end up if we try to litigate with CBAC. And that's something that I'm looking not to do as your governor. And another important thing is, I'm going to get back to the DOT and cost savings. Why did the DOT this year spend $750,000 to a private contractor to plow the DOT headquarters in Berlin Turnpike? The information we're going to be putting out is similar to that. Why are they taking budgets? We talked about zero-based budget, Peter did a minute ago. Zero-based budget means we've got $10 million in this budget. We have to take the labor and make sure we spend that money until it's gone, even if there's nothing to do. Every agency has this problem. Every agency, Department of Corrections, where we need more overtime and we don't have it. We have people sleeping on the job, literally, and you're going to hear that from state employees, literally sleeping on the job. The good workers, the good state employees that have morality and are tired of it have come to my campaign for me to put it out. They want to change, they want to change at the bottom.
Peter.
Thank you very much. To cut the cost of this state, I have 5 prongs. The first one is going to average. And going to average is asking what happens to our state budget if the compensation of our state employees, deductions, contributions, benefits were set at the 50-state average. The American Enterprise Institute in 2014 examined all 50 states and added up what the kind and well-meaning state employees of the state of Connecticut earn. And they found that the state of Connecticut outperforms, or we win the category, 42% better than private sector. The average of the 50 states would be about 10% above private sector. So I'm proposing that we go to the average of the 50 states, which is 10% above the private sector in all terms of their employment. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
We have to take a look at salaries of the legislature, the governor's office, managers, and trickle down. Sometimes we see that we have 2 managers in the same department. Why should we have it? You know, Governor Malloy, I'm going to go back to Governor Malloy because he went to the state employees that are on salary and they have to do furloughs of getting not paid to go to work, so we could hire 5 judges at $100,000 each. We have to use more common sense when we're doing things on budgets, salaries, and take a hard look at all of our departments and our budgets.
Thank you. Doctor, you had a rebuttal?
To have a significant impact, we've got to look at 20% of where the budget is. And 20% of the budget, $4 billion, is on health and human services. So it's only when we look at those services and run those services in a far more efficient way will we see the significant change, the cuts that he just asked us about. Education. Is there education for our patients who are receiving our Medicaid services? Not enough. Do we have enough alternate ways we can render service rather than depending on going to the emergency room? You know and I know how expensive a trip to an emergency room is. Those are changes we will make, we will mandate they be done, and that's how we deliver services, top quality services. No question about that at all. We will not compromise that, but it can be done in a far more efficient way.
Thank you. The next question is from Al Robinson, publisher of Hat City Blog and all things social media.
Always a pleasure, Marty. 5 years and 1 month ago, we had the Sandy Hook shooting, where a number of kids were gunned down. And this week, we had a shooting in Kentucky. And let me show you this headline here. It says, Kentucky school shooting, 11th of the year. It's only January. We had 11 Sandy Hooks in 1 month. Guns, and the debate over guns has been going on and will continue to go on for quite some time. And recently, the governor has proposed to put a ban on what's called bump stocks. Bump stocks are devices that you put onto semi-automatic guns to increase the rate of fire. The governor stated that bump stocks are cheap, they are deadly, and have no place in our society. I'd like to hear your opinion on bump stocks. Do you agree with the governor that there should be a ban on them? And if so, why? And if not, why?
Okay, Dave, we'll start with you, if you don't mind.
Well, first you have to start with constitutional principles. The Second Amendment of the Constitution, and believe it or not, the Constitution of the state of Connecticut actually has stronger gun rights than the U.S. Constitution, because it says you have the right to bear arms to protect yourself and your state. It doesn't say anything about regulating anything. That being said, we clearly have issues with regard to background checks. We clearly have issues with regard to mentally ill, which is what a lot of these situations have been recently, including with regard to Sandy Hook. I've got some concerns about bump stocks. If you have a device that basically takes a legal weapon and converts it to an illegal weapon, then I have concerns about that. Well, let's not kid ourselves. The only thing the governor can do is to ban sale. We are 50 states. What's to say you can't buy it in New York? What's to say you can't buy it in Massachusetts? What's to say you can't buy it in Rhode Island? By the way, what's to say you can't print one with a 3D printer? We have to recognize that when you're dealing with gun rights, it really needs to be handled at the federal level, consistent with constitutional principles, if it's going to be effective.
Doctor?
I believe in the Constitution. I've taken the oath of the Constitution. And so, for us, the Second Amendment, along with the other amendments, is extremely important. So yes, you gave us examples of the horrors. We've lived the horrors in our own state. But you've got to remember that guns are a tool. Guns are just a vehicle. What is important, the most important thing we miss, is the person behind the trigger, mental illness. That's what we've got to address. We could be talking about guns, we could be talking about bump stocks, we could be talking about the pressure cooker that happened in Boston. We could be talking about you're going to have 2 days or 3 days before you rent a truck if you happen to be in New York City. So the list could just go on and on and on. But to me, the two most critical things when it comes to societal impactness, as far as how can we be a safer society, that's the bottom line. The safer society is when we pay attention and give it the necessary access in terms of treatment to mental health. That's the crux. That's what we need to address and not be side-staged into could it be this, could it be that. That is not the argument. The argument is mental illness.
Marty?
Any rebuttal or feedback? Yeah, Al, go ahead.
I just want to ask this question again. Are you for or are you against bump stocks? That's the question.
We'll circle back around. So no one, I'm sorry, Doctor, the response to the question? Are you for or against bump stocks?
Are you in support of Governor Mulroy's proposal to ban bump stocks?
I am in support of a federal law which says that they have the right to review, and as we know that, right now they're doing that. The federal, the Bureau and Alcohol and Tobacco, that they are charged with looking into what needs to be done as far as bump stocks are concerned. So I do not believe that a state can do what it wants to do. We've got to follow federal guidelines, and I'm waiting for the federal guidelines to come up on the subject matter and review it at that particular point. That's my position.
Peter?
Yes, thank you for the question, Mr. Robinson. I'm a veteran of the United States Army Reserve. I joined as a first lieutenant and I made it to major. And as part of our duties, we did learn how to take apart an M16, clean it, put it back together, and fix the sight. And as Mr. Walker stated, our Connecticut Constitution does give us the overt right to bear arms. But to answer your question, I'm not a fan of bump stocks. If it makes an ordinary weapon into something that becomes an automatic weapon. When they drafted our Constitution, that was not within their contemplation. But I also ask if we will have a chance at all to mention the Chicago tragedy that happens every day in this country. And what is the Chicago tragedy? 2 young men of color die every day in the city of Chicago of violent death. And I don't think this country talks enough about that. Thank you.
Eric?
As a United States Navy soldier that I was trained on M16s, 9mm, and M60s, I was an M60 gunner for the United States Navy CB Construction Battalion. Bump stocks and any other thing that you put on a weapon. Even though Sandy Hook, I'm a father of 4, and all these other tragedies are mere tragedies. But these are just objects. Whether it's a bump stock or not, added to a weapon, it won't change the rate of fire. It's the magazine that changes it. Not the back part of a gun that just bumps against your shoulder when it fires. We would have to take a look to see if that is the cause of the weapon to fire more, and if so, do something about it. And all these tragedies are to happen. But the weapon itself is not the issue, and I know I'm getting off mark on it. It's the person behind that weapon.
Joe?
Thank you all for the question. If you all recall, I debated Governor Malloy on October 24th on NBC 2014. I asked the governor, what did hunters have to do with Sandy Hook? Why was he regulating hunters? Why was he regulating large capacity magazines? Why was he regulating ammunition? It was a grab. It was a gun grab by the Democrat Party and the left, which is seeking to take away our Second Amendment rights. It's pure and simple. That's what they're after. Let's talk about this. 2 of my magazines had to be registered for my Beretta 380 because they were large capacity, over 10 rounds. What would a bump stock do on 10 rounds? Nothing. Have you ever fired a gun? Do you own a gun? Do you understand what 10 rounds means with a bump stock? Because legally you could only have a 10-round magazine. It adds nothing to the capacity. It's the governor's political agenda again for the left. So, you like, ask us to register them. Who cares how many of them are in Connecticut legally? Very few, because you only have 10 rounds in your legal gun. And everyone needs to start paying attention to the details, because this is the left looking for a gun grab, pure and simple, again.
Okay, and you already spoke to this?
I did.
Okay, we have a caller, David from Woodbridge. What's your question for the candidates? Excellent question. So the question is, during the primary, obviously you're running against yourself, but in the general election, what other than Dan Malloy is a dirty, rotten scoundrel that's running the state into the gutter, other than that, what is your message? And Peter, why don't we start with you and we'll go to your right. Thank you, Colin.
What is my message to the voters?
Yeah, other than
General election.
Dan Malloy is a really bad guy, what is your positive message that you feel like is going to be a winning message for the Republicans in the general election?
Well, the winning message for the Republicans in the general election is taking a very sobered view of the difficulty we are in. We have seen 2 rounds of tax increases led by Governor Malloy, and we see people leaving the state. And the people leaving the state happen to bring money or take money with them out of the state. People who are coming back in to fill in those numbers do not have as much money. It is a downward spiral. We cannot afford any more taxes. In fact, we have to find a way to actually tax our people less. And part of that are my 5 steps, which is again going to average 50 for 20, the adjustment of existing pensions, the unconstitutionality of the CBAC agreement, and certainly no new taxes. But I have a positive message of unity, of gratitude, common humanity, and liberty, because we do have a positive message, that we're all brothers and sisters and we will get through this together. Thank you.
Eric?
We must focus on what we need to do to make Connecticut a great state again. To create jobs, to keep jobs from leaving, to bring jobs back, to make our economy boost again by putting tolls on the entry points only, not exiting, 95, 91, 84, 395. Not throughout the state of Connecticut, just the entry points. Also, by education, boosting education, the trades, create more trade schools. No, I'm not going to attack Dan Malloy. It's going to be about the future of our children, our state, how we can make Connecticut great again by our economy growing, finding a way to grow our economy and not tax our people to death, and make it so that the poor and middle class get prosperous like the rest of us.
This is not going to be a race that's playing nice in the sandbox. This race is going to be probably the hardest fought race. The Democrats are not going to give up control of Connecticut. We tell the public, we're putting the adults in charge. We know how to do math. Dan Malloy is the Democrat Party. Look at the candidates they're putting up now. Luke Bronin, mayor of Hartford, promised to stay, basically bankrupted Hartford. Jonathan Harris from my town of West Hartford was rewarded becoming a Commissioner of Revenue Services after he, as the executive director in his party, were fined $325,000 for dirty money in the campaign in 2014, which is why I endorsed Tom Foley. They broke the law, criminal activity with emails, taking state contractor money for Dan Malloy. Let's take another look at Joe Ganim from Bridgeport, a convicted felon. Joe's a great guy, but he's a convicted felon. Take a look at who they're running. Ted Kennedy Jr. won't run. Nancy Wyman won't run. They destroyed this state pure and simple. They can't do math. We're going to take them out. They will address the economics right now.
I'm not going to spend any time at all on Dan Malloy because Dan Malloy is not running for re-election. Connecticut is a beautiful state with a proud history, with a great geographic location, with a lot of great assets, including, most importantly, its people. But it's gone from a top 5 state to a bottom 5 state in the last 30 years because of professional politicians, because of too much taxation, too much regulation, too many promises, and not enough results. What I will help them understand is what do we need to do to put our finances in order, to create additional economic growth and job opportunities, to get rid of the corruption that exists in this state and in the localities, to create a better future for all of our citizens. It's about the future, not about the past.
Thank you. Doctor?
For me, as far as the Republican Party is concerned, what we need, and we will get there by the time the primary is done and we have our nominee, A, is what is our message, and B, who is going to be that messenger. A messenger that resonates, a messenger that's going to be able to connect, convince, and communicate. That will be the person that's going to come out of our primary. And so, with the right message, the message in terms of a pro-growth, pro-business environment, addressing the inefficiencies in our state, looking at the big elephant in the room, as far as pension and healthcare reforms are concerned, and then of course we've got a long platform of transportation, education. So the message is there, we have the messenger, and that is what will make the difference and make the possibility of a Democrat leading our state practically non-existent.
Okay, we had a question come in by email. It said, I'd love to ask the candidates the following question. Given the state is still in a sizable deficit, what policies of Governor Malloy's do you feel need to be changed and why? And what would you want to do to improve our economy and reduce the deficit? That's number one. Improve economy, reduce the deficit. Why are you the right candidate to lead Connecticut out of its problems? And then the bonus question is, if you were to be the party nominee, please look at the other Republicans running for governor and tell me who you feel would be a good choice to be your lieutenant governor and why. This question is they're asking for a master's thesis. You're going to have to consolidate it. Economy, why you're the best candidate, and who would make a good lieutenant governor, and why, all in 60 seconds. Peter, take it away.
I'll address part of it. I am the best candidate because I have the most realistic 5-point platform to reform our budget and get going. I mentioned before going to average. The second one is called 50 for 20. 50 for 20 is 50 years of paying pension for 20 years of work. That was never good government. James Madison, Federalist Paper 62, good government is 1, to work for the happiness of the citizen, and 2, how best to achieve that. We cannot afford 50 years of paying pension for 20 years of work. From here on out, it's 401k. If it's good enough for the private sector, it's good enough for the public sector. And yes, the pensions are so huge. We heard the figure of $60 billion unfunded said today. We can't afford it. We cannot add any more taxes. We must work towards reducing the income tax and the inheritance tax. And so that has to be addressed. And then we have the unconstitutionality of the summer CBAC agreement. And that's a matter of a vote of the legislature and signature of the governor. Thank you.
Who would you run it with as lieutenant governor? How about Joe Visconti?
It's not, I would like to propose that all of the Republican candidates for governor would be good lieutenant governors. This is not, I pick A or B. Their heart is in the right place. They all seek fiscal responsibility for our state, and to be honest to the citizenry. We cannot afford it. We must save Connecticut, and we will do that together. Thank you.
Okay, Eric, the economy, why you're the best candidate, and who would be a good lieutenant governor?
I'll start off with the lieutenant governor. I'm not a career politician like the rest. I believe all of them would. I'm sorry, I take that back.
We've never been paid.
I am not a politician like the rest. But they would all make great lieutenant governors if I was. And I would definitely have a lot to learn from these gentlemen in this room today. It's an honor to be in their presence, sitting here running for governor with them, I must say. Also, the economy. I'll reverse I'm from the middle class and poor. I know what it's like to struggle, what it takes to make it right. I'm down here with the eyes of the...
You're close.
I see everyday struggles and what it's going to take to make it better.
Excellent. The economy, you covered them all.
Yeah.
The economy, why you're the good candidate, and how you
We
like
have to
lieutenant
lower
governor.
taxes for small businesses to thrive because they're the backbone of our society, but also businesses to attract them, bring them back.
Excellent. Joe?
Well, legally, I can't promise everyone a job, but anyone running for governor's got a place in my administration. I'll start off with that. That's how I'd like to answer the lieutenant governor, which is just, that's not a question I think is proper for anybody. As a general contractor for 40 years, commercial projects, large commercial projects, multi-million-dollar projects with time sensitivity for major companies, Fortune 100s, throughout Connecticut, I learned one thing: if you're not on the job, you're not in control. I would be a boss to 50,000 state workers, and I would be with them. I would send my lieutenant governor out to many of the appointments that the governor goes to today and spend my time with the workers, as I'm doing on the campaign trail now, finding out what's wrong with their job, what's wrong with the performance, staying within the public. As a general contractor, I would also be as a field general. We need that now because billion-dollar deficits are coming year after year into the future, and the only way we're going to change everything is from the bottom up, not from the top down, not from lawsuits, not from the lobbyists at the state capitol lobbying. It's all going to happen from the field. Thank you.
I believe I've already answered the question about what are some of the things that we need to do to increase economic growth, to put our finances in order. You can find out more at davewalkerct.com. With regard to Lieutenant Governor, I've said publicly that I will endorse somebody for Lieutenant Governor. It's way too early to do that. I've also campaigned from day one that it's not just about having the right governor, It's about having a Connecticut turnaround team who can work with the governor to make the tough choices, to implement those actions to create a better future. That means governor, lieutenant governor, constitutional officers. It means taking control of the Senate, taking control of the House. It also means a top-flight cabinet. And there are a number of people that are running for governor now in other offices that would be part of that Connecticut turnaround team. Why am I the best candidate? There are several reasons, but I'll focus on one given the time. I am the only candidate, Republican, Democrat, or unaffiliated, that has a proven track record of making government smaller, more economical, more efficient, and more effective. And God knows that's what we need.